Christian parenting.
Are your kids consumers or producers? We're going to talk about that today on Family Vision.
Hi, my name is Ray Rienow. Welcome to Family Vision with my parents, Dr. Rob and Amy Rienow, strengthening families through practical, encouraging, and real conversations. Family Vision is powered by the Christian Parenting Network.
Hi, Rob Rienow here with my great wife, Amy.
Hello.
Welcome to Family Vision. As always, we welcome your questions on marriage, parenting, and family issues. You can email those to us at podcast@visionaryfam.com.
Today we're going to talk about a very interesting subject, and it's about helping our kids become producers and not consumers. Really, I think the first thing we need to deal with is the idea that, having kids makes us poor,
Right.
And I will say, as a mother of 7, having kids, having 7 kids is not cheap. So we're not trying to minimize the idea that children are expensive. Yes, we do have a lot of expenses that we wouldn't have if we had only 3 kids. But that is an interesting concept, right? That just having children is a financial drain. I mean, that's probably what I would hear the most from other moms. Like, when they say, well, wait, you're pregnant with your 5th. Like, how can you afford that is sort of the, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you put yourself under that financial pressure?
Right. We tell people we have 7 kids. They're like, wow, that's great. That's wonderful. And then how do you afford that? And again, like Amy said, I'm not saying it's easy. But big picture, up until the last few decades, it was kind of common knowledge or understood that children made your family stronger financially because there were more workers, there were more producers. You think about maybe a farm family. Well, the more children you have more people to work on the farm. There's more people in the family to do the work, to do the tasks. But in today's mindset, the way a lot of families think is that parents are the producers and the kids are the consumers. So if you multiply consumers, it just puts more pressure on the producers. So we're asking God to help us have a different vision for our kids and for our family, that our kids, as they get older, would produce, they'd contribute, and as a team, we'd work together to help the whole family be stronger financially and in every other way. So, honey, let's dive right into kind of practical conversations about this. Now, believe me, we are not holding ourselves up as a perfect model for what we're talking about today. We are at 101 with a lot of this stuff, with the pick up your things, make your bed, turn off the lights. And this is not just the kids, to Amy's torment here. Honey,
Pure
why?
torment.
Why are all the lights on in the house? You're the only one home. I don't know. I like it on. But let's talk about the kids. Let's not focus on the conflict areas. Talk to us a little bit about this vision of the family working together.
Well, again, we're going on this idea of producers for consumers. I think we can often think right in terms of money. Those are the words that come to us right away. But even in this area of work, like, are we being productive in our own homes? That can start
just
at
the family tasks.
Yeah, that can start at a very young age. And I have to tell the story about how this was introduced to me because it's very powerful. Again, going back to our youth ministry days, I was hosting a girls' high school group at my home, and I had a lovely girl join us who was she was just home for a year on missionary furlough, and I don't remember her name. I just remember her face. That's all I can remember. And she came to my group only a few times, but it was right about the time that my oldest RW was entering kindergarten and needing to learn to read, and that was my full passion as a mom. I need to teach this kid to read, and any mom knows that how early your kid reads is some sign or badge of honor of great intelligence or something. So we all have this pressure with our first to, get them to read, because that's going to show how great they are and how great we are, right, as moms. So I'm talking about this. I find out this girl was homeschooled, this missionary girl. And so I'm asking her questions, and just very passively, she says, well, my mom never taught us how to read until we learned how to do family work first, because she told us it was more important to learn to be contributing to the family than it was to read. Like that was the most important task that you needed to learn first, was how to work for the family and serve the family. And that was the most important. And then it also taught her that reading was a privilege. So, okay, well, that was life-changing for me. It was like a
upside down
180 switch. I'm like, what? I'm like, that is brilliant. That is brilliant. So the whole mindset was teach your child to serve your family first, to do chores, and that would be the first task, and then they get the privilege of learning how to read. Well, that rocked my world completely. And I have to thank, someday I'll get to heaven and get to thank this precious girl and her mom, because it changed
everything. Whoever you are,
everything.
you know your name.
Yeah, I know. They probably don't remember the conversation, but it changed everything for me, so that I took that 5-year-old and said, okay, first things we're going to do in the morning is we're going to learn how to do some basic family chores before we start working on our schoolwork. And, learning what we now call the morning routine, but basically, learning how to, put your dishes in the dishwasher, or learning how to simply sweep the floor, clean the bathroom. That was the work of the day, but also it was encapsulated with the idea of not just giving my kids chores, but teaching them that they were a vital part of helping this family work better. Yeah, that we're a team, and when you learn to do your chores, you're learning to serve your family, and that's the most important thing as family members that we do. We serve one another. And then as we serve one another, it makes our home run smoother, and then we get to do the other important things that God has for us. And for RW, that was the privilege of learning how to read.
Right. And so when it comes to something like cleaning the kitchen after dinner for 9, if everybody contributes, and we have 7 worker ants and Amy and me, we can get a lot done if
Right.
everybody is diligent. Something that I think that you do so well is challenge the kids and help the kids work on tasks together. So like for me, like the easiest way to get something done well is do it myself, right? Now the next worst case scenario is to try to train a child to do the job, because it's probably going to take me more time and it's not going to get done as well. And the absolute worst case scenario is asking multiple children to do a job at the same time together, because it's going to be World War III and the job's not going to get done. But you do so well with this. So you'll ask like Lainey and Millie to clean the bathroom together. And sometimes you'll go so far as to say, now listen, I want you to clean this bathroom together. And yes, I want a clean bathroom, but I'm doing this because I even have a greater purpose. The number one thing I want is for you two to learn to work together with happy hearts. That's what's really hard. Cleaning a bathroom is really easy, but you two learning to work together with happy hearts is even more important. And I think that has been really, really transformational. Now, all of us know what it's like to deal with stinky attitudes, whining, complaining when it comes to chores. Honey, talk about that, especially as it relates to this idea of obedience versus honor.
Well, just going back to what you said, that first of all, just acknowledging that training your children to work and serve the family is a difficult task, no matter what. It's a difficult task, and it does require extra time from you. And sometimes it can feel like you're stepping backwards instead of going forwards because of the extra time that it takes. But the consistency in helping your kids realize that as they learn to work together, like you talked about, as they learn to serve the family by doing basic chores, that is well worth the payoff of that extra time. So, a lot of people would ask me, for example, how do you homeschool 7 children? And my typical response was always, it isn't pretty. It's nothing that you think that it is. And when you've seen a whole morning spent on, chores, and we haven't gotten to our academics till 1 o'clock or something like that, it doesn't feel like we're making much progress. And I just want to encourage you, if you develop this mindset that you're trying to help your kids have this mindset of being producers as opposed to consumers, it is going to be messy. It is going to require time for you to teach them some of those lessons. But yes, you talked about the importance of honor and obedience. These are just some really basic biblical and spiritual lessons that we can teach our kids in this process of helping them serve the family. And that it's not only that we want our kids to learn to obey us when we're teaching them, important household tasks or teaching them to do their morning routines. But we also want them to understand that they want to have a heart of honor, not only towards their parents, but towards each other. So that's why I will often assign to kids a task that are having a really hard time with their relationship. Maybe if they have to do a chore together every night in the kitchen, it's kind of misery at first, but that gradual process of working together actually helps bind their hearts together. And I actually got this idea really from going back to our youth ministry years of doing missions trips. When you take kids on a missions trip, you really see how when students work together, they become very, very connected, right? They become very connected, relationally and even spiritually on those missions trips. And so I kind of tried to implement that same idea in my home, that one of the best ways I can build relationships with these kids is to help them to work together and to work together in our own home. There's plenty of work to do in our home, plenty.
Yeah, and emphasizing that the heart is more important than the task. So we've all been in this situation. You ask your 13-year-old to clean their room, and they say, fine, I'll go clean my room. And they go off and they mumble and bumble and complain, and they're throwing stuff around, and the room gets cleaned. So this is really opposite. What we're talking about today is really opposite of the world view that the culture gives us. Because the culture says, look, you can mumble and grumble and complain all you want as long as you get the room clean. And from a Christian perspective, that is really upside down and backwards. So that child obeyed, they cleaned their room, but their heart was grumbling and complaining. So part of this vision of working together as a family is not just white knuckle it and get people to do stuff. It's taking the time to work on the heart issues so that we're learning to serve God and we're learning to serve each other. And this scripture is so powerful. Colossians 3:23 and 24. It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for men, since you know that you'll receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. I remember a conversation with one of our sons who will remain nameless. He was mowing the lawn and he was just zipping around. He's leaving lots of lines. And I asked him, I said, what if Jesus asked you to mow his lawn? He's like, well, Jesus doesn't have a lawn. I'm like, okay, fine. He owns all the lawns, but that's beside the point. But what if Jesus asked you to do this, not me? Would that change your attitude? Would that change how you were doing this job? And he's like, well, yeah, I guess so. And this isn't just for our kids. This is for us as parents. Imagine how all of our work would change if we rightly, truly approached it, that this is something Jesus has asked me to do, that I'm working for the Lord, not for me. It's the Lord Christ that I'm serving.
So this whole way of thinking is not just for within your home, but can also overflow outside of your home. And really, this vision of being a producer and not consumer is really what we saw grow in our kids. And probably one of the most beautiful examples of this was with our daughter, Lissy, who was always a dancer, like her mother before her. And she would organize these little dance recitals in our neighborhood with her friends and, put on these dance recitals. And she started that probably when she was more like 7 years old. But as she got to be in 5th grade, she had a younger sister. And one of the ways she even enjoyed or worked with her younger sister was starting to do these things together. And she had kind of outgrown doing her own recitals. She decided that she would try to put on a dance camp for her sister and their friends and, basically teach these little girls a dance, teach them how to dance and use dance in an act of worship. And they did it with Christian music. And that actually started what's still going in our house today, which is dance camp. And even at 5th grade, it still stuns me, even at 5th grade, that she was able to, get the vision for what she wanted to do, which was basically produce a dance camp in our home. And she with her dad's help, got flyers together and organized so many aspects of it. And so she started running dance camp in 5th grade and ran it it ran it all those years down to
Both a business and a ministry.
a business and a ministry. And then Lainey came up and she started running it, and Millie's running it. And so I can't even count the years now that it's been over 10 years that we've been hosting dance camp every summer. And so she was producing, not just consuming, and creating something, not just in our own home, but in the community as well.
Right. Now, when the kids start earning money on their own, we were helped with a pretty out-of-the-box idea for this. This one's a little old school, but it's made a big impact on our family. So just as an adult, question for you, like how much of your income goes into the budget line labeled spend however I want? Okay, what percentage? Okay, for us, it's pretty much zero. But if you're an average teenager, let's say you make $100 babysitting or whatever, how much of that $100 goes into their pocket and into the spend however I want category? I know for me, when I was a teenager, 100%, right? That money went in my pocket. I spent it how I wanted. That's like the total opposite of adult finances.
Right.
It's an individualistic mindset about money rather than a family or team mindset about money. So here's what we've tried to do. When our kids make money outside the home, that money goes into 4 buckets. 10% goes into giving, and then 20% goes into the family budget. 20% for gas, 20% for groceries, for the mortgage, then the other 70% into savings and guided spending. So the teenagers' work is actually helping the family. They're producing, not just consuming. And maybe you'd say, my kid would hate that, okay, having to help pay for things in the house. And actually, we've seen the opposite. And I would just ask you, how do you feel? Like if God blesses you with income and you pay some bills, it actually feels good to pay a bill and put it aside. And we want our kids to feel that same blessing, like that same honor of contributing, putting into the family, not just taking out.
Yeah, and I would say that because of that mindset and the way Rob, trained the kids with the finances, it really encouraged all of them to pursue entrepreneurial work early and try to create more creative ways of bringing in money to help, not only for their own finances, but also to help the family. JD would run Lego camps. My oldest son does sport lessons and baseball lessons or kind of athletic lessons. And I think that it just produced in all of our kids a sense of an entrepreneurial spirit, that they can produce things that help contribute to the family in many ways. And I like what you said before with Lizzie's dance camp. It was not just, just like a business is not it benefits you, but it benefits others as well. I think it gave them the ability to see that they had gifts that God had given them that they could use in a lot of out-of-the-box ways that they hadn't really thought about before. And that, I also think, is a really helpful byproduct of teaching our kids to be producers and not consumers.
Right. And this also gives us an opportunity to have conversations with the kids about putting first things first. Like I know here we are, we're talking about money and work and all of that, but that's not where we find like security and peace and happiness. In our culture, parents have this conversation with kids over and over again. You need to study hard. Well, why? Well, to get good grades. Well, why do I need good grades? Well, you got to go to college. Why do I have to go to college? So you can get a good job. Why do I need a good job? So you can have money. Okay, that conversation happens over and over again. That's all fine, but that's not what we need to be telling our kids. That's not the vision. The vision is do everything as unto the Lord. Like seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and He will provide for you, and He will take care of you.
So we hope that this conversation today, which I think in many ways brought up a lot of different topics that we could talk more about in the future, but I hope it expanded your vision for just the vision that you can pass on to your kids, that they have a lot to contribute. They have a lot to give. God wants them to be producers. He wants all of us to be producers because He has plans for us and for His kingdom. And He's given us many gifts. We can use those gifts to serve our family. We can use those gifts to serve others. We can use those gifts to start businesses. Really, there's endless opportunities out there, and that's the vision that we want our kids to have from a very young age.
Yeah. And if you want more of this, like you're catching a bigger vision for how maybe God wants to use your family relationships, check out our book, Visionary Parenting. It's anywhere you buy your books. We also have a 10-pack bundle on sale at our website, visionaryfam.com. You could go through that as a small group Bible study. You'll love it. And don't forget, you can email your questions about faith and family to podcast@visionaryfam.com. And connect with us on any social media channel. Just search Visionary Family Ministries. And a huge thank you to those of you who are supporting Visionary Family Ministries financially. You make this podcast and everything we do possible. And you can learn more about supporting our ministry to families around the world at visionaryfam.com/donate. And we look forward to talking with you next time on Family Vision.